Star Wars is not just a series of movies, it is a legend that has spanned generations. It has shaped childhoods, sparked imaginations, and defined the way people see storytelling itself. When a franchise reaches that level, when it becomes something larger than life, every new chapter carries an unimaginable weight. Every decision, every change, every addition to the story holds the power to either elevate the legend or shatter its foundation. That is what made the sequel trilogy such a turning point. It was not just another set of movies, it was the continuation of something sacred. It was a chance to take the lessons of the past and bring them into a new era, to build upon what had already been carefully crafted. And yet, instead of preserving the soul of Star Wars, something else happened. Something that left fans divided, uncertain, and in many ways, disappointed. For some, the sequels are a natural evolution of the franchise, an attempt to introduce a new generation to a galaxy far, far away. For others, they are a betrayal, a reckless rewriting of what once made Star Wars great. But no matter which side you stand on, there is one undeniable truth. The sequels changed Star Wars forever. The question is, did they change it for the better? Or did they undo what made the saga special in the first place? Did they add to the legacy, or did they rewrite it in a way that left something missing? More importantly, can Star Wars ever be the same again? In this video, we are going to break down the impact of the sequel trilogy in 6 key sections. We will examine what Star Wars was, the choices that were made, the themes that were lost, and the effect this all had on the franchise as a whole. And by the end, we will answer the question that refuses to go away. Did the sequels ruin Star Wars? Star Wars was not just a film series, it was a cultural foundation. The original trilogy gave the world a galaxy filled with depth, meaning, and purpose. Every character had a role, every line of dialogue carried weight, and every moment built upon something greater than itself. When a Jedi ignited a lightsaber, it was more than just a weapon, it was a symbol of discipline, training, and wisdom. The world of Star Wars was carefully crafted, built on the struggles of its characters and the battles they fought, both within and outside of themselves. Luke Skywalker was not just some random hero, he was a representation of growth and understanding. Darth Vader was not just a villain, he was a tragic figure who fell, but still had a chance to rise again. Every choice in these movies mattered, every failure taught a lesson, and every victory was earned. There was a sense of weight in the galaxy. The fall of the Republic meant something, the destruction of Alderaan meant something, and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker meant something. When Return of the Jedi ended, the audience did not just see the end of a war. They saw the fulfillment of a prophecy, the completion of a journey, and the restoration of balance. This is what Star Wars stood for. A carefully woven tale that inspired, challenged, and rewarded those who invested in its story. The sequels were given the responsibility of continuing this legacy. But did they honor it? The sequel trilogy had an opportunity, a rare and powerful opportunity, to expand upon the foundation that was already laid. They had beloved characters, a rich history to pull from, and an entire galaxy that was waiting to be explored. But instead of building upon what was already established, they chose to dismantle it. Luke Skywalker, the man who stood against the darkness and found hope even in his worst enemy, was reduced to a bitter exile who gave up at the first sign of failure. Han Solo, a man who had found purpose and meaning through his journey, was thrown back into the life he had already outgrown. Leia, one of the strongest leaders in the galaxy, was given no real role other than standing around and looking concerned. And then came the new characters. Rey, a protagonist with no struggles, no failures, and no real journey. Kylo Ren, a villain who was written to be powerful, but constantly acted irrationally and weak. Snoke, a mysterious figure who was introduced with no explanation, and then thrown away with no purpose. The sequels wanted to create something new, but instead, they erased what came before, and replaced it with something hollow. Instead of crafting a story that respected the past while moving forward, they made a story that actively rejected the past and stumbled forward without direction. The audience was left questioning what any of it meant, why any of it mattered, and whether Star Wars itself still had a soul. Star Wars was always about the battle between good and evil. The idea that darkness is seductive but can be resisted, that failure is painful but can be learned from, and that redemption is always possible if one chooses to seek it. These ideas were deeply rooted in the DNA of Star Wars, shaping its characters and defining its world. The sequels did not just fail to expand upon these ideas, they abandoned them entirely. The concept of balance in the Force, once a central theme, was reduced to meaningless words with no real explanation. The struggle of the Jedi, once an internal and external battle, was rewritten as a shallow power fantasy with no discipline or understanding. The idea of legacy, of passing knowledge and wisdom to the next generation, was dismissed in favor of cheap subversions and shock value. In the original films, Luke had to work to become a Jedi. He had to face temptation, make mistakes, and push past his own fears. Rey, on the other hand, was simply given everything with no training, no setbacks, and no lessons to learn. There was no journey, no struggle, no moment where she had to truly face the darkness within herself. And without that, her victories felt empty. The soul of Star Wars was lost. The lessons that once shaped its story were ignored. The conflicts that once carried emotional weight were brushed aside, and the journey that once inspired millions was replaced with a directionless mess. When The Force Awakens was released, there was a sense of excitement. Star Wars had returned, and there was hope that it would reclaim its former glory. But as the trilogy continued, that hope turned into disappointment, and then into something worse. The Last Jedi did not just divide the fanbase, it shattered it. It was not just a film that took risks, it was a film that deliberately rejected everything Star Wars stood for. It mocked its own heroes, it dismissed its own lore, and it spat in the face of those who had carried this franchise for decades. The Rise of Skywalker tried to fix the damage, but by then, the damage was irreversible. Star Wars was no longer a unified experience. The sequels had made it something divisive, something uncertain, something that people no longer agreed upon. Some tried to defend them, some tried to erase them, and some simply walked away from the franchise altogether. Instead of revitalizing Star Wars, the sequels left it in a state of confusion and exhaustion. Instead of creating a future for the saga, they left it with an uncertain path. The magic that once brought people together had now become something that pushed people apart. So did the sequels ruin Star Wars? That is the question that lingers, the question that refuses to go away. The answer is not simple, because for some, they are just another set of movies. But for those who saw Star Wars as more than just a franchise, the answer feels much heavier. Star Wars was more than just its stories, it was the feeling it created. It was the journey of watching a farm boy become a Jedi, the heartbreak of seeing a hero fall, and the triumph of watching a father be saved by his son. It was something that mattered, something that left a mark on the people who experienced it. The sequels did not just struggle, they dismantled what came before. They removed the foundation, rewrote the rules, and tried to redefine what Star Wars was, without understanding what made it special in the first place. Some might say they added to the story, but if that were true, then why does it feel like something was taken away? If Star Wars was about hope, then why did the sequels leave so many feeling lost? If it was about redemption, then why did it feel like there was nothing left to redeem? If it was about balance, then why does it feel like everything is now out of balance? So here we are. The sequels exist, they are part of Star Wars, and they will never be erased. But the real question is, what do we do with them? For some, there will always be a stain on the legacy of Star Wars, a misguided attempt to recapture something that could never be replicated without true understanding. For others, they are simply more movies in a franchise that will continue to grow, change, and evolve. But the truth is, Star Wars was always bigger than any one set of movies. It was never just about the stories being told, but about the way those stories made people feel. And for many, the sequels did not carry the same feeling, the same weight, the same meaning. Maybe that is why this debate will never end. Because once something as powerful as Star Wars loses its heart, it is not easy to put it back.